Valentino Rossi was leading the 2015 World Championship, comfortably, consistently, 9 podiums in the first 11 races. This wasn't just another season, it was his final shot at a 10th title. Then something shifted. Marc Marquez, already out of the championship fight, suddenly became unpredictable, aggressive in all the wrong moments, surgical in every moment Rossi needed space. At Phillip Island, Rossi called it out. Marquez had no stake in the title fight, but instead of battling Lorenzo, who was second in the standings, Marquez locked himself into a 25-lap dogfight with Rossi, diving in, backing off, slowing corners, attacking in awkward lines, throwing off rhythm. The onboard footage was strange. Overtakes made, then surrendered. Corners entered hard, then exited deliberately slow. It didn't look like racecraft, it looked like provocation. And when the checkered flag waved and Lorenzo took second behind Iannone, Rossi had seen enough. In the post-race interviews, he said what half the grid was already whispering: Marquez doesn't want me to win the title. Then came Sepang. 1 week later, with emotions boiling and the media fanning flames, it exploded. Mid-race, Marquez engaged Rossi in what looked less like racing and more like a street fight. Corner after corner, he shadowed Rossi, refused to pull away, refused to let him through. On lap 7, Rossi snapped. Turn 14. He looked, he drifted, he held the inside line. Marquez went down. That single moment changed the entire season, and possibly the future of the sport. Race direction responded within hours. Rossi was given 3 penalty points, enough to drop him to the back of the grid for the final race in Valencia. Lorenzo, still mathematically behind, but now he was gifted a clean shot, and what happened in that final race added fuel to the fire. Rossi, starting from the 26th, put in a masterclass, one of the greatest comebacks ever. He cut through the field, up to 4th within 15 laps. But at the front, Lorenzo led, and behind him, Marquez sat, close, perfectly positioned, but never attacking. Lap after lap, Marquez followed, within a 10th, with more pace on straights, better braking on corners, but no move, not a single attempt. The excuse? Tire conservation. The truth? It looked staged. Fans worldwide noticed. Even commentators hesitated. Onboard footage showed Marquez lifting on exits, backing off on straights. Throttle traces released by fan analysts confirmed what eyes already saw. He wasn't racing Lorenzo, he was shielding him. Rossi finished 4th. Lorenzo took the race, took the title, and left the paddock split down the middle. On one side, those who called it a setup. On the other, those who insisted Rossi brought it on himself. But let's go deeper. Weeks before Sepang, Rossi had already started talking about Marquez. He saw the way Marc engaged at Misano, how he blocked clean lines at Aragon, how he played with positions at Silverstone. It was never enough to penalize, but always enough to interrupt. The conspiracy wasn't that Marquez was paid to sabotage. It was that he didn't want Rossi to win a 10th, that the new king didn't want the old one to rise again. That's where the phrase Spanish Alliance was born. Lorenzo, Marquez, Pedrosa, all Spanish, all backed by Spanish sponsors, racing in a Spanish-owned series. Some pointed to Repsol, others to Dorna itself, because a Rossi win would make headlines, but a Spanish sweep? That was legacy protection. And then there were the interviews, the post-race silence from Marquez, the no regrets line from Lorenzo, the shrugging off from Dorna officials, no formal investigation, no telemetry review from the race direction, just closure. Too fast, too neat. And that's what made it a conspiracy, because Rossi didn't lose because of speed. He lost because the people around him knew when to stop racing. It wasn't just about Sepang, or Valencia, or even Phillip Island. It was about the shift, the quiet moment when sport became narrative, when riders stopped fighting each other and started managing outcomes. That's why Rossi's fans still call it stolen. That's why Lorenzo's title carries an asterisk in so many minds. Because if Marquez had tried even once to pass in Valencia, the outcome could have changed. Instead, he sat behind Lorenzo like a wingman, not a rival. And MotoGP, they moved on like nothing happened. No review, no retrospective. Because once the story ends the way the promoter wants, the truth becomes irrelevant. Yamaha's 2020 revival looked innocent at first. Just 3 blue bikes gliding through Jerez's furnace. Quartararo dancing away with back-to-back wins, while Viñales and Morbidelli snapped at his heels. The stopwatch said progress. Insiders whispered miracle. Then the MSMA inspection log leaked. Valve assemblies on all 4 M1 engines differed from the homologated drawings filed in February. Same part numbers, different metallurgy, marginally lighter. At 18,000 RPM, marginal is a sledgehammer. The paperwork told its own thriller. Yamaha's race department claimed a supplier swap forced the change, yet no request for approval appeared in the email archive the tech directors keep like a holy scroll. Still, the bikes stayed on track for 10 rounds, banking victories and screen time. Only after Suzuki's title challenge began nudging viewing numbers toward new demographics did the penalty arrive. 50 constructors' points, 0 rider deductions, no podium forfeits, no TV edits showing slow-motion valve flex. Why spare the riders? Because points lost by Quartararo in October would have detonated the championship storyline. Dorna had already sold to broadcasters from Sao Paulo to Seoul. A rookie French hero versus Mir's consistency glued eyeballs. A mid-season disqualification would have shoved both into mathematical irrelevance by Aragon. So the punishment landed exactly where it hurt least, on a trophy almost nobody outside the paddock notices. Accounting pain, narrative safety, jump 12 years back. Casey Stoner, Donington Park, 2009. He qualified qualifies in the front row, looks pale, bows out on Sunday morning. Then he's gone for Sachsenring, Brno, Indianapolis. 3 rounds, 3 empty red pit boxes, Ducati marketing scrambling to cover the absence of its only winning asset. The official line, mystery fatigue, later lactose intolerance. Unofficial chatter, burnout, Epstein-Barr, even a quiet ultimatum from a sponsor unhappy with Stoner's media-shy persona. Numbers tell a sharper story. Ducati's global bike sales dipped 8% first half of 2009. Marlboro's parent company was renegotiating signage. Dorna's domestic rights holder in Italy demanded Rossi versus somebody. When somebody vanished, pressure mounted. Rumor says a back-channel meeting in Bologna ended with Stoner advised to take a medical break, while contract lawyers hammered out a future that looked brighter for everyone once Valentino signed with Ducati for 2011. Stoner returned at Estoril, won the next 2 races, and left MotoGP 2 seasons later, after citing politics as strongly as injuries. The conspiracy crowd still circles a single datum. Ducati never again released detailed blood test results, yet Stoner's mid-season points loss put Rossi's title chase back on prime time, even as Lorenzo surged, suspiciously tidy. While Stoner wrestled internal demons, Ducati's engineers took notes and weaponized them. Between 2017 and 2022, they dropped innovations like cluster bombs. 2017, front hole shot latch, legal, laughed off. 2018, rear height jack, protested, upheld. 2019, swing arm spoon, Aprilia, Suzuki, Honda, KTM filed a joint appeal. Court ruled in Ducati's favor on a technicality after 96 furious hours. 2020, triple plane winglets, allowed until Suzuki joined the complaint queue. 2021, start procedure ride height reset, legal at dawn, questioned by lunchtime, restricted by midnight. 2022, automatic rear squat device, dominated launches, banned for 2023, before the champagne dried on Bagnia's championship bottle. Pattern spotted yet? Ducati invents, wins. Everyone screams. Regulation rewrites close the door just after the Italians stroll through. Even Davide Tardozzi jokes, we're the R&D department for the whole grid. Fans call it genius. Rivals mutter moving target officiating. Either way, each ban arrives only once the red bikes prove the concept under floodlights and worldwide cameras, never during winter tests when a quiet no would cost zero showbiz. Then came Losail. Ducati's acceleration splattered lap records across Qatari asphalt 4 years straight. Viewership spiked early season, but so did complaints. The calendar is tailored for them. In 2023, Dorna shifted the opener to Portimao, citing logistics. No sand, cooler air, tighter turns. Ducati still won, yet the margin shrank and chatter calmed. The move looked practical. For conspiracy hunters, it smelled like event-level handicapping. Aprilia's rise wrote a subtler chapter. Under concession rules, they enjoyed open engine development, endless test days, extra wildcards. Alex Espargaro turned the RSGP from paddock punchline to podium regular, scoring Silverstone victory 2023. 2 weeks later, the FIM tweaked concession thresholds mid-cycle, slashing Aprilia's privileges instantly rather than at season's end. Official reasoning, competitive parity. April brass smiled through clenched teeth. Privateer bosses nodded. Anything to block a factory outsider from tilting the power pyramid too fast. Meanwhile, broadcaster choices fed the paranoia loop. Rossi's Yamaha twitches filled entire replay packages. Zarco's whole shot launches rarely earned a second angle. At Aragon 2021, cameras switched just as Bagnaia defended 3 consecutive passes from Marquez. Many Spanish viewers missed the full duel. Italian feed replayed it 8 times. Selective storytelling, producing for domestic sponsors? Either way, editors pick narratives, and narratives steer speculation. All this folds back into Yamaha's 50-point slab. Constructors' standings vanished from most highlight reels. Rider drama stayed front and center. Quartararo kept every podium. Morbidelli kept that Misano masterclass. Vinales' early wins still sparkled in montages. Fans saw leniency, pundits saw pragmatism, rival engineers saw precedent. Break rules cleverly and only the accountants bleed. The bigger question hangs unasked yet obvious. Is MotoGP's rulebook a legal document or a living screenplay revision? When manufacturer parity, broadcast intrigue, and national marketing dollars collide, penalties morph into plot devices. Every valve sanction, aero freeze, age limit tweak, or calendar shuffle becomes less about fairness, more about suspense retention. And that's why conspiracy theories here refuse to die. They survive on timing, on half penalties, on awkward camera cuts, on innovation curbed precisely 1 heartbeat after it crowns a new king. Evidence, thin, patterns, thick as Bridgestone rubber laid down at turn 3. Quartararo's valve saga, Stoner's mystery fatigue, Ducati's banned brainwaves, they're not isolated scandals. They're bullet points in MotoGP's unwritten style guide. Keep the championship alive, even if the rulebook needs emergency surgery. The 2020 valve controversy gave Yamaha a scandal, but not a scar. Yet if you dig deeper into MotoGP's recent seasons, it becomes clearer. It wasn't Yamaha that was protected, it was who Yamaha represented. Because Quartararo wasn't just a rider on the rise, he was a global poster boy. French, marketable, telegenic. He was the perfect bridge between Rossi's charisma and the sport's TikTok generation. And when he led races in 2020 and 2021, camera trucks knew exactly where to aim. MotoGP wasn't going to let a technical irregularity disrupt the story arc they'd spent 2 years building. This wasn't the first time narratives beat scrutiny. In fact, the deeper you go, the more MotoGP starts resembling controlled chaos. Let's rewind to the 2013 rule change that introduced the factory versus open class division. On paper, aimed at helping underfunded teams compete. In reality, a sandbox where Dorna could nurture select manufacturers without handing out charity checks. Open class entries were allowed more engines, more fuel, and less tech restriction, at a cost, running Dorna's unified ECU software. The loophole? Factory teams could enter open bikes under satellite banners. Honda gave Asper a near-factory engine. Ducati exploited the open rule to develop their next-gen Desmos Hitachi while claiming concessions. Even Yamaha provided an M1 engine to forward racing with stripped electronics. The line between open and factory blurred so much, Race Direction re-merged the classes within 2 seasons. But not before Ducati, who had languished for years, used that window to leapfrog back to competitiveness. Legally, but with the kind of engineered advantage other factories couldn't protest without looking petty. Still think conspiracy needs secrecy? Sometimes it wears paddock passes. Even more transparent was the 2020 tire allocation curveball. Midway through the season, Michelin revised the rear carcass compound. Public explanation? Better heat resistance for warmer tracks. Unofficial consequence. The change nuked Honda's grip levels and neutered Yamaha's traction advantage. Guess who suddenly rose in performance? KTM. The Austrians, up until then struggling with rear stability, suddenly matched Ducati on exits. Brad Binder's shock win in Brno wasn't a fluke. It was a byproduct of the one technical tweak nobody could opt out of: tires. Michelin never admitted targeting parity, but the timing felt poetic. Marquez out-injured, Rossi fading. KTM desperate for relevance after years of wildcard obscurity. One compound change, one shuffle of supplier data, and the grid was leveled overnight. Need another? Let's visit Race Direction's greatest hits. Catalunya 2021. Quartararo's leathers opened mid-race. The chest flap swung open at over 200 kilometers per hour. Gloves, skin, collarbone completely exposed. MotoGP let him finish the race. Later, they gave him a 3-second time penalty. Not for safety, but for a shortcut at turn 1. Rider after rider spoke out. If it had been a rookie, black flag. If it were Miller, Zarco, even Alex, disqualification, but Fabio, he's the face on the banner. And in MotoGP, banners don't get flagged. Now, layer that with the overt production control fans have been noticing for years. Every Sunday, camera bikes follow the same riders, regardless of position. A lead pack with Marquez at P9 will get more coverage than Binder and Bezeki in a P1 to P2 dogfight. Why? Because Dorna's metrics show viewers linger longer when familiar faces are in frame, even if they aren't fighting for victory. Think of it like reality TV. You don't follow who's winning, you follow who sells the show. That's why penalties vary week to week. Alex nudges Binder wide at Austria, race incident. Zarco does the same to Martin at Misano, long lap. Marquez clips Oliveira in Portugal, no further action. Same stewards, same season, 3 different rulings. And the explanation? We judge incidents in isolation, but fans aren't isolated. They see patterns. They see how some riders are discussed endlessly post-race, slow motion, multiple replays, expert panel debates, while others vanish from the coverage like they never existed. In 2023, Enea Bastianini made a last corner lunge on Alex Marquez that forced both wide, no penalty. 2 weeks later, Raul Fernandez clipped Joan Mir's rear tire in a similar maneuver. Double long lap penalty. Both incidents in dry conditions, both first lap scenarios. Where's the consistency? Some say it's race pressure, others say it's politics. Because the second Mir retires from a pointless crash, Suzuki's legacy fades faster. But Alex Marquez finishing 12th? No loss to the sport's narrative engine. And just like that, Race Direction begins to look less like referees and more like script supervisors. Now let's talk about Dorna's digital empire. Every social clip, every highlight package, every season recap, approved, cut, and curated by a centralized team. Notice how little you see of Martin's frustration interviews, or how Zarco's passive-aggressive sarcasm rarely makes the MotoGP YouTube edits. There's a reason. Riders who color outside the emotional lines threaten the brand tone. And in a sport increasingly dependent on Netflix-style engagement, tone is king. Remember MotoGP Unlimited? Amazon's docu-series on the 2021 season? Initial episodes featured bickering, engineering disputes, team tension. By the second half of the season, those moments disappeared. Why? Because some teams pushed back, arguing the drama was exaggerated, but fans loved it, and when it got toned down, viewership dropped off. Conspiracy? Number control. Calculated, emotion-moderated, and sponsor-approved. It's not that the drama's fake, it's that it's managed. And that brings us to the final layer: calendar manipulation. India was added in 2023 mid-season. Track wasn't ready, infrastructure chaotic, logistics tight, but the market? Massive. Meanwhile, Argentina, despite passionate fans and full grandstands, was dropped for 2024. Why? Cost, travel. But ask any journalist off camera and they'll whisper the same thing. Argentina doesn't sell MotoGP plus subscriptions. India might, and that's the new currency. It's no longer about filling seats, it's about expanding data pipelines. Dorna wants new fans, and if that means sacrificing track familiarity, legacy venues, or even safety, they'll do it. Because the biggest conspiracy in MotoGP isn't sabotage, it's evolution disguised as governance. moments. And if you're fast enough, sharp enough, and clean enough to notice the rules bending around certain riders, you might realize it's not about cheating. It's about control of the show, of the stars, and of what you believe is still real.